Hi, everyone. So, in the show with Dom and Sin, we got to hear from a thriving couple. It's the only way to put it. They met in kindergarten and had been friends and then partners ever since, more than 50 years together. And I could certainly spend this deep dive talking about all the ways that they're kicking ass as a couple, but I kind of feel like we covered a lot of that on the show. So, I was thinking of pivoting to another theme that struck me as we were chatting with them. So I realized that Dom and Sin only recently got married. They weren't married for the first 50 plus years of their relationship. And they also didn't have children. And they also have close friends who are of the opposite sex. And it struck me that all of these things kind of buck the trends, all those societal expectations that are put upon us. And yes, they shared that they didn't get too much pressure from their family to conform to different norms, which is great. But honestly, that's pretty rare. I mean, a lot of parents are heavily invested in seeing their children marry, or they very much want to be grandparents. And I'm sure a good amount of people judged Dom and Sin for their choices, whether consciously or unconsciously or vocally or not. So if that sounds familiar, I guess the key would be to keep a few things in mind. First, I would say to make sure you and your partner are clear about your values and goals. You know things will get dicey if you're vague or you don't communicate changes in your thinking or you don't discuss differences in what you want. And second, it's okay to have boundaries with opinionated people. The friends who want you to get married, the parents who want grandbabies. But family and friends have a right to their feelings about your choices, and they're not jerks for having an opinion about your life. But you're also not a jerk for having limits around the sharing of those opinions. So if you're someone who thinks you're going against the norm right now and the people around you are having a hard time with that, let's talk about what you can do. It's helpful to assertively tell them how involved or vocal they're allowed to be in your presence. That's fair. And it can even help to have some gentle phrases at the ready when people push you, like, I don't know, I understand how you feel and we're happy with our choices. I know what a lovely world would be if people respected limits like that, but okay, for the sake of argument and reality, let's say they keep pushing. Um, I kind of want to share an example, so bear with me because I think it fits. So I had a client who was really fed up with his mom for pushing marriage all the time. So he tried saying something akin to what I said just now, but she kept going with the pushing. So together, we created a series of escalating responses for him. So the next time she pushed, he said, I hear you and I know it's not what you want, but my choice hasn't changed and I don't want to talk about this anymore. And then when she kept pushing, he let her know that he was just going to walk away from the conversation. And then he actually followed that up with action. I remember one time he left a dinner where she brought it up, and he didn't make a scene or anything. He just quietly left. And another time he was at her home visiting and she started up. And so he just got up and went into the other room. And then another time he didn't want to leave the family dinner. So he just turned to someone else and started talking to them. And the mom was upset. She was like, how hurtful, it's so disrespectful what you're doing. And he said, listen, I've been clear with you. And so I'm not going to stop removing myself when you bring this up. And he also tried to get some empathy from her, saying he similarly felt disrespected when she kept pushing him. And then we talked about the importance of him conveying how it's affecting their relationship. So he was able to say something like, continuing to talk about it is altering our relationship, and neither of us want that, right? And I think he even suggested that she seek help. And I know what you're thinking. It's like, sure, Michelle, it always goes over so well when you tell a loved one they need therapy. But what he did was communicate in a respectful way that he didn't want to dismiss her disappointment or frustration, but that she was going to need to find someone else in her life, even a professional, to help her cope with it. He couldn't be that person for her. So he was honest, but he was also kind. And that makes me think again of Dom and Sin, because one of the many things that make them so awesome as people and as a couple is that they are authentically themselves. And they were able to carry that over into being an authentic partnership. So, like them or not like them, either you are free to take whatever path works for you. Just know that there are effective ways and not so effective ways to respond to people who push back about it. Oh, and before I end, I don't want to leave you hanging if you're wondering what happened with that one client. The truth is, mom did back off, which is great, right? But I have to say, this client was absolutely convinced these steps wouldn't work. Who would say, no, I know my mom, this will be disaster, this will be pointless, I don't want to do it. But in the end, something made him try. And sometimes consistent and clear limits actually work. Imagine that. So, my suggestion to you is to also give it a try. And I guess if all else fails, sign them up for the show, and Kelly and I will talk them through it. All right, that's it for this deep dive. If you want to hear more on this topic or be a guest on the show, email us at the unrelatingpodcast@gmail.com.